So we continue with Li Hei's poems. The first poem of his that we have read and commented on was a poem that he wrote to his man Pa in Canggu, which was his hometown and probably his clan base. And you can go and watch and listen to it again. Basically, it was a self-deprecatory poem where the Li Hei, who is feeling sick and like to die, praises the loyalty of this family servant of this Pa, who is looking after him in this probably relatively dreadful autumn night. So this poem is meant to be the reply that my man Pa makes to Li Hei. So it's not a genuine reply. It's like a literary exercise. Like this is Li Hei imagining the words that Pa, his servant, would utter back. Now it's a short poem. It's a quatrain like the previous one, so there's not that much to be said about it. One thing that struck me about it was its humor. I mean, remember, the background of the two poems, as far as we're aware, is a situation in which Li Hei is suffering from a severe illness, and probably it could have been the illness that led to his young and premature death after an unsuccessful career as a civil servant and being unable to stave off poverty and misery for his family. And yet he still finds the humor of gently deprecating himself and imagining this interchange between himself and his servant, in which first he makes fun of himself and then the servant apparently makes a little bit of fun of him as well. And it's not easy to find this sort of self-deprecatory humor, as far as I remember, in classical Chinese poetry. Like scholar officials, the Confucian scholar officials tend to be stuffy and arrogant and having anything except a comedic outlook of themselves. They do include self abasement a lot, which is culturally and socially to be expected when a person addresses his superior, whether it be the emperor or a scholar official of higher ranking. But that rings very hollow as a very hypocritical self abasement in which the individual just says how useless and stupid he is. But we don't have anything like that here. We have good making fun of oneself, which is something we're pretty used to in the West. Okay, let's take a look at the quatrain. As we said, it's pretty short and it's meant to be my man Pa's answer. So the first couplet starts with two funny nicknames that perhaps Li He was given either by this servant or by his household, and which depict physical characteristics of Li He. So probably he had a big nose by Chinese standards. They generally associate big noses with Westerners, by the way, and bushy brows. And if you see any drawing of Li He, don't know how reliable they are, but they tend to paint him with one big brow going from eye to eye. So perhaps he had this sort of thick unibrow that some people suffer from. And those motivate the slight making fun of that the first couplet represents. Big nose looks best in mountain coarse clothes. Bushy brows should stick to his poetry toils. So the servant, is making fun of him and saying, big nose, I know you look better when you adopt this rustic persona of the suffering hermit with coarse mountain clothes, the retired hermit living in the mountains. That's the persona that makes you feel comfortable. He says, bushy brows, you should stick to your poetry toil. So don't come here lamenting about your illness and thanking me for my loyalty. Occupy yourself in the things you do best, which are lamenting in poetry and living out this persona of the mountain hermit. And the second couplet continues with the line, this time talking directly about the poems of Li He. Were it not for the songs you sing, who would know the depths of autumn sorrow? Again, here, where I suppose we're meant to read this with a slight irony. So it's praise on the one hand, like saying, you're a good poet of autumn, and this is as we've talked time and time again, this is the favorite season of classical Chinese poetry, and it's the melancholy, sad season of fall when in creeping death and decadence make themselves felt, but still in the midst of beauty and still not having reached the darkness of winter and death. So it says, were it not for the songs you sing, who would know the depths of autumn sorrow? You're a melancholy poet, who expresses in his verse the sadness, the melancholy tone of autumn. Again, I think, I'm not completely sure, but I would guess this is meant to be read ironically as well, because, there's hardly a Chinese poet that doesn't write about autumn sorrows. So one would think that even Li Hei's absence would not have hindered Chinese readers from knowing about the depths of autumn sorrow. So the whole poem has this like humorous, ironic, and self-deprecatory tone, which, as I said, is pretty fresh and pretty unusual in classic Chinese poetry, and as such, I appreciate it.